Hi guys, and welcome to my new channel. Here I'll talk about geopolitics and what I wanted to talk about for a while. Like I did, like I'm a very good student of history. Let's say that because a self-study taught student of history outside internet business that I run. So today we will discuss about how Britain won the World War II, and so why did they give India? Okay, even after winning the World War. See, in 1945, Britain had just won the biggest war in the human history. Germany was defeated, Japan was surrendered, the British Empire still controlled a quarter of the world. And yet, within just 2 years, Britain gave up India. Not after losing a war, not after military defeat, but after winning. So the question is, and that's the question every Indian asks, like, why would a victorious empire give up its most valuable colony? This isn't generosity, it was necessity for them. Because see, it was a necessity, right? See, Mhm. See, empires do not behave like individuals. They do not act on guilt. They act on And they don't even act on the gratitude. They act on cost. When a victory becomes so expensive that when the control becomes uncertain, even the strongest empire sets back. And Britain did not collapse in India, but it calculated its exit. This is a moral story, it's a power story. This is not a most explanations of Indian independence are emotional and vague. They focus on courage, they focus on sacrifice, all that matters, but the empire do not live because people are brave. Bars leave when staying becomes too expensive, and that is not a moral story, it's a power story. Britain before 1939 had a global empire. Before World War II, Britain was everywhere: Africa, Asia, the Middle East, trade routes, resources, money, all, and in that center was the empire of India for them. India was a backbone of the empire. India was not just another colony. Indians and India paid for British administration. India supplied raw materials. India provided soldiers for British wars. Without in India, the empire weakens, and that is why Britain held India so tightly. India was not symbolic, it was economic. Britain did not rule India out of pride. It ruled India because it made economic sense. Empires survive on profits. For decades, India paid the bill, but then something changed. World War II, right? Changed everything. World War II was just not a military war, it was economic war. Factories worked non-stop, cities bombed, resources were drained, and Britain spent more than it could afford. In fact, later on, Britain was, through Lend-Lease agreement, getting goods from United States without even paying them. It lost its all its gold and everything. Victory came, but victory came at a cost. But came at a price Britain could not afford to keep paying. Britain in 1945 was victorious, but completely bankrupt. Britain had won the war, but it had lost the financial strength. Victory did not make Britain stronger. It exposed how weak Britain had become. And the problem was Britain dependence on the United States. See, after the war, Britain depended on American loans. And when you depend on someone else's money, you lose freedom. The United States had no interest in supporting its old empire. Britain understood the message. And the more importantly, the empires are expensive to maintain. Empires cost money, administration, surveillance. India was becoming more expensive to control, and the unrest was growing. India stopped paying for itself. This is a turning point. India was no longer profitable. Every protest increased the cost. Every deployment drained resources. A colony that cost more than it earns becomes a liability. India was no longer stable. Authority still existed on paper, but on the ground, something like the Quit India movement by Mahatma Gandhi shook British confidence. Control with confidence is fragile, right? And loyalty inside army, the Indian National Army changed everything psychologically. It failed militarily, but it created doubt. What if Indian soldiers don't follow the orders? And the doubt inside an empire is dangerous. See, when an empire doubts, right, control without confidence collapses. When empire doubts the loyalty of its soldiers, control collapses quickly. Britain understood this risk and it could not accept it because it just fought a global war with Hitler and maybe it has defeated but lost all his wealth and everything. The global order shifted after 1945. The world after 1945 was different. Europe was devastated and exhausted. Two powers dominated the United States and the Soviet Union. Under Stalin, old empires became relics. Colonialism became a liability. Colonial rule no longer brought prestige, it brought criticism, pressure, and the cost. Holding India was no longer strengthened Britain, it weakened it. And Britain had to face a choice stay in India and spend more money, risk instability, delay recovery, or leave India and preserve strength. This is not an emotional decision, it was strategic. Britain chose to exit. Britain chose survival over sentiment, not because it wanted to, because it had to. And the speed mattered more than the stability. The longer Britain stayed, the higher the risk. So the exit was rushed. Speed mattered more than stability. And partition followed the haste. Partition was not inevitable, but haste made it inevitable. Britain left before stability was built. The human cost was enormous. Millions were displaced. Violence followed. Trauma spread across the subcontinent. The cost was real. So Britain what did? Britain prioritized survival. Britain prioritized its own survival. It's Britain's survival. Empire choose always themselves, right? This is not unique to Britain, France, the Netherlands, the Portugals. All face the same reality. The age of empires was ending. Right? So empire weakens nation over time. Maintaining a global control drains domestic strength. Eventually, the bill arrives. For Britain, it arrived in 1945. 1947 reshaped the global politics. India's independence reshaped Asia. It accelerated decolonization. It changed global power balances. Britain after India a reduced power. After India, India became a regional power, influential but no longer dominant. Right? So economics, see, understand. See, empires leaves when staying becomes too expensive, not morally expensive, economically, strategically, politically, not because it suddenly believed in freedom, which they portray, but because it ran out of options, right? And armies matter, ideology matter, but the money decide how long the power lasts. And the logic still applies today. Modern powers face the same limits. History does not repeat, but it rhymes. History is shaped by decisions, not speeches, not slogans, decisions made under pressure. Victory does not guarantee control. Sometimes victory even exposes the weakness faster, right? So, under the pressure, not with explosion, but with paperwork, deadlines, pressures reveals reality. This is how power work. Calm, calculated, but unforgiving. Hmm? That's a history for you guys. That's a history for you guys. History is not emotional. History is transactional, and understanding that is power. All right. So, guys, I'll continue making these history type videos because I love making them, and enjoy all of this content and please share with as much people as possible. Thanks and have very happy New Year.